You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is time for a Locked On crossover action. Brandon Olsen from Locked On Gators, John Neighbors of Locked On Razorbacks here. And we're going to get into this, but first, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy with Prize Picks. And John, I'm diving right into this. I need to know what this Arkansas offense is going to look like. Not that any of us know really what it's going to look like. All we know that is that to this point hasn't been awesome. But I need to know what it's going to look like now after a bye week and the coordinator change.
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, it's like, I don't really know what to make of this thing because Arkansas has had so many pieces from last year's offense, which an offense that ranked, I believe, 5th in the SEC in total offense, one of the better ones in the country. You returned the two key components to all that with KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders, and you changed offensive coordinators. And now that was a complete and total disastrous hire of Dan Enos. Everyone knows that. And the offense got worse and worse. And so now they made the move of firing Dan Enos, and they go into the bye week. Kenny Guyton is now the offensive coordinator who was the wide receivers coach and former quarterback at Ohio State. So, you know, you got a guy that at least knows the position a little bit, but I have no clue. Sam Pittman has said that they've lowered the volume of the playbook. He says that they're going to try to go more tempo, go faster, whatever that means, you know, but I don't really expect much because this offense has been just absolutely atrocious. So, I guess we'll find out on Saturday to see if this defense or this offense actually looks any better.
Yeah, that sounds like such a weird approach to take of we're gonna turn the volume down on the offense on the playbook, but we're gonna go up tempo. That very peculiar approach there. One thing that has been interesting for me is just like I feel like the offensive line for Arkansas has been not great, Bob. And considering that that's kind of Sam Pittman's area of expertise, what in the world is going on there?
Dude, you're literally just asking me questions that I've been talking about on my podcast for months. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how it happened and how it got to this point. Like, it would have been one thing where last year Arkansas goes 6-6 and everyone was pissed. Like, they were mad that the team was scoring a bunch of points, but they had the worst pass defense in the country, like by far. And they made some changes, some adjustments. And everyone's like, okay, well, you know, the defense could be a little bit better, but this year, but now that the offense, hey, you still got KJ, still got all these guys. You still got Sam Pittman, offensive line coach and everything. And now it's awful. It's like an offensive line might be, I don't even think it's might. They are the worst unit on this team. And, you know, I think the part of it is the offensive philosophy of Dan Enos. I think that that's part of it. But same time, like Sam Pittman, who has been notorious in being known for being an elite offensive line coach. I mean, it's so weird. It's like seeing Lincoln Riley without a good quarterback, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. So I think it's a lot of the scheme. And I think that they're going to try to work on making it more towards like just as easy as they can as possible. But they just don't have dudes. Like they got some decent players, but just don't have dudes. And, you know, honestly, their best offensive lineman right now, statistically, is Josh Braun, a former Gator, who's making his return. So, well, I'll be interested to see. That's another thing. Well, probably more so than anything, just the offense. But is the offensive line just bad, or was it a bad scheme? Like if they actually do a better job in this game, maybe I'll change my mind. But yeah, that's been everyone's big thing of like, dude, of all things that you felt like Sam Pittman would be good at, offensive line, it has not been that way.
Yeah, I think that's another thing where we can talk about, oh, like, is the offensive line just bad or is it a bad scheme? But really, how much of a change can you even expect? I get it. You had the bye week. You had more time to install things and more time to work on things. But at a certain point, you got to just be like, you know, you are who you consistently show you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like at that point, is a bye week and a coordinator change really enough, or do you just have to like chalk it up and be like, yeah, that's what we suck at right now? That's where I'm at with Florida's offensive line anyway. Like that's how I find it.
Well, it's so funny because, like, you know, the last time we saw Arkansas play, it was 7-3. That was the final score. I watched it in person, and I still can't believe that what I witnessed. Like, it was so bad. So I think people are like, well, the offense can't get worse than that, because Mississippi State was not a good defense either. Like, it just, so it's like, it can't get worse. So maybe it can get a little bit better. Maybe after having a bye week, they can work on some stuff. Maybe, because they still got KJ, and it looks like Rocket Sanders is going to be good to go. He's been battling injury this year. So it looks like he's going to be good to go. But none of it's going to matter if you can't block. Like, if you can't block anybody, it's over with. And that's kind of the thing where, I've been trying to watch Florida a little bit, or at least as much as,
I'm very sorry to hear that.
yeah. Well, just because, you like to watch the opponents, and Arkansas and Florida don't play each other very often. But like, Florida is one of those teams too, where when after that Utah game to start the year, I was like, oh, Arkansas is going to win this game, because I thought Arkansas was going to be a lot better. It's like, oh yeah, that's a win. And then they beat Tennessee handedly, and I was like, okay, that's weird, but okay. But then they get smoked by Kentucky. I was like, okay, now they're back to being bad. But then they like end up beating South Carolina, which is, I'm not saying it's a great win, but it's like you come back and you take care of business. So it's on the road. So I don't know. Like, I don't know what to make of either of these teams. And like, it could be a game that ends in 7-3, or it could be a game that ends like 42-38. Like, I don't know, because Florida, to me, like, at least with Arkansas, they've been consistent, where they've lost 6 straight. Florida, I don't even know what to make of. I don't know if they're good or not. I don't know what it is.
Let me tell you, I don't either. That's the only thing. Every time that I talk with anybody about these Florida Gators, and like, what do we really know? Just that they're inconsistent. That's the only thing we know about them, is that they're incredibly inconsistent. And I will tell you, because you just mentioned this game could end 7-3. I think most of my listeners at this point know that I live in New York. I've spent quite a bit of money to go to this game down in Gainesville. If I paid that to watch a 7-3 game, I am going to raise hell. That's all I have to say about that. But the last thing I did want to ask about Arkansas's offense is, you mentioned Rocket Sanders probably coming back, been dealing with injuries. What kind of impact does that really make here, where is it going to change much? Or, like you mentioned, doesn't matter if you can't block for anyone?
I mean, again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you can't block. But, you know, Rocket wants this game because he's coming back home to his home state. And Arkansas and Florida, as we mentioned, like, they don't play a lot of times in Florida. So this means something to him. And it's literally going to come down to this. If Arkansas's offensive line can block, if somehow, by some miracle or some scheme, whatever it is, if they just improve their blocking, then Arkansas's offense is going to be better, and it is going to go, because they do have some good skill position guys, and they got KJ and they got Rocket. Like, it will go. But if they can't block and it doesn't change anything, then you're going to see the same result. So it may be a cop-out answer, but it's like, Rocket, yeah, his impact could be great if they block, but if they don't, it doesn't matter. So it's all about the offensive line. And I'm glad Rocket's back. He's a really good player, and I know he wants it, but Arkansas has been averaging like 0.8 yards a carry, it feels like, this year. So he can only be as good as the guys in front of him.
Yeah, I feel like this game is, at least when you look at Arkansas's offense versus Florida's defense, it's very much the battle between the movable object and the very stoppable force here, where it's just like Florida's allowing over 400 yards per game in SEC play. It's just been so damn bad. But we will talk about the rest of this game and both sides of this. But before we talk about that, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Prize Picks. And let me tell you, Prize Picks has been the best way for me to make money playing daily fantasy sports this year. If you've got skills, little bit of time, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few easy taps and research. And it's simple and easy to play with quick withdrawals too. So it makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And I will thank Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey for their efforts this past week. Thank you very much. It was free money. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Remember that Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy.
Again, this is the Locked On crossover edition with Locked On Gators of Brandon Olsen and Locked On Razorbacks of John Neighbors. And I know, Brandon, it's about matchups a lot of times in these games. And as far as Florida goes, the strength that they have, and maybe going up against the weakness of the Arkansas Razorbacks, like, what is what is going to be the key for the Gators that if they do this one thing really well, then they're going to win this game?
I'm very curious to see how their offense is going to deal, how the Florida Gators offense is going to deal with the Arkansas defense. I'm also just curious to see what Arkansas's plan is because Florida's been pretty good, particularly when facing man coverage this year. Arkansas, they dabble in that just a little bit. And so I'm very curious to see how that goes because, like we mentioned, both offensive lines are bad. Florida, when they actually throw the ball against the blitz, they're great. But Graham Mertz has taken quite a few sacks this year, holds onto the ball too long at times. I'm very curious to see if Florida can win that battle just in the passing game. It's been tough for Florida's offense to do anything. Like we know, offensive line's bad, can't do anything, don't care how much you complain about Billy Napier not having an offensive coordinator, Arkansas changing their offensive coordinator. Doesn't matter if you don't block people up front. So I'm very curious to see how Florida's passing attack handles this Arkansas defense.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way where I feel like Arkansas's defense is not getting enough credit because of how bad the offense has been. And, say what you want about Mississippi State, and they're not a good team, but holding an SEC opponent to 7 points and doing it where the offense is giving you nothing in return, like they're putting you back on the field immediately, is really impressive. And I think Arkansas's overall defense has gotten so much more improved. And it's just a matter of can it be enough to give the offense at least their opportunities to try and get some points out of it. 'Cause, yeah, I think Arkansas ranks 5th in the SEC in total defense, and the Gators are 6th. So it's kind of an interesting thing there to see who ends up taking care of business. But to me, also with Arkansas is defensively, they've done a really good job of turning the ball over or getting turnovers. And I think that if you look at the team just in turnover margin, they're 4th in the SEC. When Florida, I see, is pretty low at 13th. So I feel like if the defense can give those opportunities to the offense by creating those turnovers, that's honestly to me going to be a huge factor in this because I don't think the defense has been not break, it'll be fine, and the offense we know about its big limitations, but if you can put them in a position of getting points and maybe in field goal range, that's going to be huge because people don't realize this, may not realize this, but Arkansas's kicker Cam Little is like one of the best in the country. He's 5 for 5 from field goals of 50+ yards. So he's got range. He's got a leg on him. So even if it's just field goals, just any points you can get, I think if the defense can turn the Gators over, that's at least going to take the pressure off the offense a little bit and give Arkansas a little momentum.
Yeah, I think they were both going in here just like kicker battle.
Yep.
Got it.
Can't
You
wait.
got Arkansas.
Be great.
Florida's Trey Smack is 2 for 2 on field goals, 50 yards or younger. So whatever, you win that one. But his only miss was a blocked field goal. So he's been dynamite whenever he's had the chance. I feel like this is going to be one of those ugly games. You mentioned the turnover margin, and yeah, Florida. One of the reasons that they're so low in turnover margin is because they can't force them to save their lives. I think they've got 3 or 4, and 2 of them were just thrown straight up into the air and picked off there. And Florida, a big thing with them is, like I mentioned, Graham Mertz holds onto the ball too long. He's got, I think it's 4 fumbles this year. Most of them are strip sacks. If he can't get something going, and if this passing attack can't get something going, or the offensive line just can't, block someone, gonna be
nice.
really, yeah, it would be nice. I know that personally, I miss Josh Braun. That'd be a great welcome addition to this offensive line. But it's just one of those times where probably gonna be ugly. I feel like we're not watching a good football game, even if it is 7-3 or 42-38. We're not gonna be watching a good football game on Saturday.
Well, I think that it's going to go, and we'll get to our predictions, I know, in a bit. But basically, this game is going to be, and nothing against Florida, but it's going to be about if Arkansas's offense truly has gotten any sort of improvement. If that's the case, I think Arkansas will win. I really do, because I think their defense has been good enough. I think KJ is a dude that has proven he can win in the SEC. And honestly, KJ's best games this year, which he hadn't had a whole lot because of the offense, but his best games were always on the road. And, take that for what it's worth. But I just think that if Arkansas can also, I don't know what the crowd's going to be like. You could probably speak more to that as far as in Gainesville. I know it's a tough place to play no matter what. But if they can get the crowd out of the game early and maybe get a turnover or two and maybe take a little bit of a lead, just if Arkansas can get that confidence going early, then maybe, just maybe, it'll open up for them. But if the Gators end up scoring early or getting a big play or a big sack or something like that to get the momentum, Arkansas is not going to come back from behind. That's just not the case. And I don't. And of course, it sounds like it doesn't. Florida's not either. So, it's almost like who scores first is going to win. Is how it gives a vibe to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a toughie. That's all. And you mentioned actually like if Arkansas's offense takes any step forward, that's something that I've mentioned quite a bit on my show and looking forward to this game. And we were talking about it a little bit off air, where Arkansas is 2-6, but their point differential is still like they've outscored opponents by like 30. It's insane to just like I would lose my mind. Kudos to you for still having hair, because I would lose my
Barely.
freaking mind if I had to watch that. Like if I had to be like, yeah, we beat the crap out of our 2 wins, and then we barely lost all of our losses.
Well, and to add to that, for those of the Gators that are listening, not only have they lost five of their 6 losses have been by 1 possession, but the only time that they lost by double possessions was against A&M and Arlington. They lost by 12. So it wasn't like just an inordinate amount. But the toughest thing and probably the worst thing about it is Arkansas went nearly a month or over a month without playing a home game in the state of Arkansas. And those games were at LSU, where they lost by a field goal. They went A&M in Arlington, which they lost by 12, at Ole Miss, where they lost by a touchdown, and at Alabama, to where they lost a field goal. So it's not even like that they've lost the games against close games against middle of the pack. Like you're talking about arguably those three of those 4 losses against LSU, Ole Miss, and Bama being 3 of the top 4 teams in the SEC right now, and how close they were and on the road. So that's what has made this even more frustrating for Razorback fans, especially because it's like, you're good. You're good enough. I think even Sam Pittman put it the best way. He's like, I know we have a good football team. We just haven't proven we can win. And that's kind of how people feel. It's like, you're good enough to compete. You're good enough to be in the SEC. You're good enough to go against these guys, but you just can't win. You can't figure out how to win. And that's been problematic.
Yeah, I think for me, like every time I see Florida lose, they get blown out. That's how things go here, because you look at the Georgia game, you lost 43-20, which is just the biggest like punch in the mouth that you can possibly receive at that point. Kentucky beat you by almost 20. Like I feel like at this point, I'm just like, all right, if it's a close game, Florida's winning. And if it's anything else, it's we'll know early on this one's going to get out of hand. And I think that's one thing that actually gives me a little bit of solace is not that I'm doubting Arkansas's offense, but it's like one of those things where like you got to prove it.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
If you can't do it against this offense, then if you can't do it against this Florida Gators defense, then I expect Florida to win if it's a close game. I think that's where I'm at.
And I know, again, we'll get to our predictions, but I see 0 way that this game, whoever wins, is by more than 10 points. Like, I just don't see that in any case. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter, if it's low scoring, high scoring, whatever it is. But I think it's going to be a close game no matter what.
Yeah, I agree with you. We will get to our predictions more specifically here in just a second. But first, today's episode of Locked On Gators and Locked On Razorbacks is brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you're like me and you've already bet that Florida is going to win this game, which is kind of that's tradition now for me, John. Every time that we do the FanDuel read during this, I already bet Florida's winning. I'm going to bet that they're going to win again. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season. You got the NBA here. NCAA football's in full swing. NCAA basketball is coming back. And remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Gators or Locked On Razorbacks your first listen of the day. And John, I will give this to you first. What is your final prediction for this game?
Well, again, I'm with you on the whole thing of until Arkansas shows they have a good offense or that offense is improved, it's hard to bet that they will. And speaking of when you're talking about the FanDuel, Arkansas actually has done a really good job against the spread because of how like 1-score games these have been. So here's the thing is until I see it, it's hard for me to say that Arkansas is going to be a team that has a good offense. And Florida, for all their flaws, they're still a team that's won 3 SEC games. They've got one good win on their schedule and one against Tennessee, which makes them superior to what Arkansas has. I mean, Arkansas's best win right now is Kent State because that's all they got. So,
Don't disrespect the MAC.
hey,
Don't.
listen, it was a close
The
game,
Toledo
28
helmet
to
is right
6.
above my head. Don't disrespect the MAC here.
It is a 28 to 6 action going on. But it's hard for me to pick Arkansas right now, to be honest. And if Arkansas won, I'm not saying I'd be surprised, but I think this is going to be a close game. I think Arkansas's offense will be improved, but not enough. Still going to have some flaws, still going to have some issues. And I think the Gators are able to win. I think it's low scoring. I'm going to go with a low scoring affair. And I think Florida wins by a final score of 20-13.
I agree with you that Florida wins by a touchdown specifically. I think we see more points scored than that just because this Florida defense, they've been bad. We've seen multiple times this season, like you look at the South Carolina game, there are multiple times where pressure gets in immediately, which we expect to see from this Florida defense against an Arkansas offensive line. Pressure gets in immediately, and Spencer Rattler just like heaved it up. And there was someone open somewhere. And even when they're not open, they just make the play over Florida's DBs. We saw it. There was a clip from the Georgia game of someone going, "This is an NFL Carson Beck throw." And as he throws it, the safety just like Florida safety just like drops to a knee right in front of it. And it's a big catch there and it's a big gain. And we've seen so many explosive plays allowed by this Florida defense. I feel like on a play-to-play basis, they're fine. But there's so many explosive plays given up to offenses. I think Florida wins this game 35-28. That's where I'm going. I think Arkansas's offense is going to be improved. It's like one of those things where every time you fire a head coach, I expect you to win the next game. Something about the interim just like changes your rhythm here. I'm expecting Arkansas's offense to pick up more points. I think that Florida's defense will be able to pick up some points against Arkansas's defense, as good as they've been. I feel like this is just one of those times where I look at Florida's passing attack. They've been good against man coverage, cover one specifically, and blitzes. And so I look at them and I'm like, all right, you should be like, this is just a good matchup for you. I think Arkansas's defense is very good. I just think Florida matches up well with what they want to do offensively right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have any disagreements with it. I just feel like if Arkansas, I'll put the magic number on it. If Arkansas scores 30 points or more, they win. Like, I mean, I know you had a 28, so I think that'd be the way it would be. But if Arkansas scores 30 or more points, they win this game because that's going to show going up against a good defense on the road after the fiasco of 3 points last week or 2 weeks ago, that they truly have made some serious improvements. And I think that means that the defense is going to do defensive things that Arkansas has done because they've done a really good job against these good offenses. Against Ole Miss and LSU, they held their own. So, if it ends up being a higher scoring game, I like Arkansas's chances, but I don't think it's going to be. So that's why I still have Arkansas losing the game. But either way, I think it's going to be an equally frustrating game for both fan bases. Like, it's going to be a frustrating game to watch no matter what.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think both you, me, and the entire fan bases for the Florida Gators and Arkansas Razorbacks just going into this game like, all right, hope for the best, expect the worst.
Yeah.
And that's all we can really do at this point in time. Like,
Yeah.
just like, I'm ready to be hurt again every single week.
Yeah, well, at least with Arkansas, they a lot of fans have already moved on to basketball because at least basketball is going to be really good this year and really fun. So I don't know if Florida has something to lean on if football doesn't go well, but at least Arkansas fans have basketball.
Yeah, we have jorts. That's
you
what
go.
we have jorts. That's about it. I'm looking forward to the basketball season, but Florida's still at a spot where I'm like, all right, make the tournament, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
So basically the same expectation that Arkansas has. That's basically the exact same spot that these two programs are in basketball right now.
Yeah, considering Arkansas has won 8 NCAA tournament games in 3 years, people are I keep telling fans, like, one day it's going to happen, guys. One day they're going to get upset in like the first round. It's going to happen. So you can't get spoiled by just 3 straight Sweet 16s and 2 Elite 8s. It's like it's going to happen. It's going to happen. You just got to get prepared. But just hopefully it's not this year because Arkansas needs a little bit something to feel good about.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing about being a team where we're just like, oh, maybe we make the tournament. Is like, if you do make the tournament, then there's no expectations for you to do anything else. So you're playing with house money at that point. If you're Florida, again, this is Todd Golden's second year. Last year wasn't the best, but more time to build the program. Confident that it'll go in, but I was also confident last time. So what do I really know here? But for Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Locked On Razorbacks, John Neighbors. Thanks for making Locked On whatever your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.